Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world where progress was measured in heavy iron, thick black smoke, and a layer of soot that settled over everything like a second skin. Tonight, we are leaving behind our quiet bedrooms, our soft LED screens, and our silent heating systems, and we are stepping onto the platform of a 19th-century railway station. But we aren't just passing through, we are checking in. Welcome to the Railway Station Hotel, that towering monument of Victorian ambition, where Gothic architecture meets industrial noise, and the finest linens in the city are always just one draft away from smelling like a coal yard. So, before we begin, take a second to get comfortable. If you're not horizontal already, let yourself settle down. Adjust your pillows, shake off the day's worries, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy drifting off to this slow, detailed, and deeply atmospheric history. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love reading those as I drift off myself. Now, dim those lights, turn on a fan if you have one, pull that heavy blanket up, and let yourself go a little limp. Have you ever wondered what it was really like to travel during the golden age of steam? Was it all velvet upholstered carriages, polite handshakes, and copper kettles? Or was it more like eyes stinging from sulfur, ears ringing from clanging iron, and the constant, nagging anxiety of missing a connection because the station clock was 3 minutes faster than your pocket watch? How did travelers survive a night in a place that never ever slept, where trains shunted beneath your floorboards and the windows rattled every time the express roared through? What did they eat in the grand dining halls? How did they wash the coal dust from their skin with water that tasted faintly of iron pipes? And did anyone actually sleep? Or did they just lie awake, counting the steam whistles and watching the wobbly gas shadows play across the ceiling? Let's find out. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the autumn of 1876, right in the heart of a sprawling industrial city. The air outside is cold, damp, and thick with the smell of wet coal, horse manure, and the sharp tang of vinegar from a nearby pickling works. The streetlights are tiny, flickering yellow smudges of gas in the gloom, and the rain is pattering against the cobbles with a heavy, relentless rhythm. You are cold. Your boots are damp from stepping in a suspiciously deep puddle outside the carriage, and your coat feels heavier than it did an hour ago. But just ahead, rising out of the mist like a Gothic cathedral that took a wrong turn at the factory gates, is your home for the night. Let's set the scene. You stand on the muddy pavement, looking up at the imposing brick facade of the Grand Junction Railway Hotel. It is huge, a dizzying mountain of red brick, dark slate, and pointed stone arches that seem to disappear into the low-hanging rain clouds. The windows are tall and narrow, glowing with a warm, flickering orange light that promises shelter, even if the soot-stained stone carvings around them look a bit grim. The hotel doesn't just sit next to the station. It is part of it, wrapping around the massive iron and glass dome of the terminal like a protective brick wall. To your left, a massive archway swallows carriages whole, their iron-rimmed wheels clattering louder than thunder as they disappear into the dark courtyard. The air here is alive with the sounds of the industrial night. In the distance, you can hear the deep, rhythmic chugging of a steam locomotive, a slow, heavy huff, huff, huff that sounds like a giant metal beast catching its breath after a long climb. A sudden, sharp hiss of escaping steam makes you jump, a sound so loud and white it feels like it could tear through the mist itself. There is the metallic clang of iron couplers colliding, the shouts of stable boys guiding wet horses, and the low, constant rumble of coal carts being wheeled across the platform. It is a symphony of noise, but it is a regular, mechanical symphony, a steady beat that eventually starts to feel less like a disturbance and more like a heavy industrial heartbeat. As you walk toward the grand entrance, you pass under a massive stone canopy designed to protect wealthy guests from the soot that drifts down from the glass roof above. You reach for the massive brass handle of the double doors. The brass is cold, heavy, and slightly pitted from years of coal gas exposure. You pull, the door swinging open with a slow, solid creak that suggests the wood is 3 inches thick and has never known a draft it couldn't defeat. Step inside. Instantly, the cold rain is replaced by a wave of warmth, but it is a Victorian kind of warmth. It is thick, heavy, and smells of several things at once. First, there is the smell of burning coal from the massive fireplace in the center of the hall, a rich, dry scent that tickles the back of your throat. Underneath that is the smell of damp wool coats drying near the fire, a faint animal scent that is surprisingly comforting. And finally, there is the background note of the entire building, a mixture of floor wax, gas fumes, and the bitter scent of stale tea. It is the smell of a place that is constantly busy, constantly heated, and constantly trying to keep the outside world from getting in. You find yourself in a lobby that looks like a cross between a palace and a steamship. The floor is tiled in red and black encaustic tiles, arranged in geometric patterns that are slightly worn along the main path to the desk. The walls are paneled in dark, gleaming mahogany that has been polished until you can see the faint wobbly reflection of the gas lamps in the wood. Towering marble pillars rise up to a ceiling decorated with elaborate plaster decorations, though if you look closely in the corners, you can see a fine gray dusting of soot that the maids haven't quite been able to reach. In the center of the lobby sits a massive iron grate, flush with the floor, through which warm air rises from the boiler rooms below. The warm air wafts up in gentle, invisible waves, carrying with it a faint rumble from the basement, the steady, rhythmic thrumming of the hotel's coal-fired heating plant. It is a deep, low-frequency sound, more of a vibration in the soles of your feet than a noise in your ears, a grounding hum that makes the entire building feel alive and secure. You walk toward the reception desk, a long, intimidating counter of carved oak that looks like it could withstand a siege. Behind it stands the receptionist, a man with a mustache so sharp it looks like it was trimmed with a scalpel, wearing a black frock coat that is completely free of lint. He does not smile, but he bows slightly, a gesture that is professional, efficient, and entirely lacking in warmth. He looks at your damp coat, then at your small leather bag, and silently decides what kind of traveler you are. He turns the massive leather-bound ledger toward you. It is a huge book, its pages thick and yellowing, filled with rows of neat copperplate handwriting. You pick up the steel-nibbed pen, dip it into the heavy brass inkwell, and write your name. The ink is black, thick, and smells faintly of vinegar. As you write, you can hear the scratching of the pen, a tiny, comforting sound that is immediately swallowed by the distant rumble of a train arriving on platform 3. The receptionist reviews your signature, nods once, and reaches for a heavy brass key hanging from a board behind him. The key is large, cold, and attached to a teardrop-shaped brass tag stamped with the number 104. He places it on the counter with a solid clink and calls for a porter. A young boy in a tight-fitting blue uniform with shiny brass buttons appears from the shadows near the fireplace. His face is pale, his hands are calloused, and his boots are slightly too large for him, but he grabs your bag with a quick, practiced movement that suggests he has carried 1,000 bags just like it today. He gestures for you to follow him, his voice a quiet, respectful murmur that has been trained to carry only 3 feet. As you follow the porter across the lobby, you pass a group of travelers gathered around the massive fireplace. 2 middle-aged merchants in heavy wool suits are debating the price of iron ore, their voices low and serious, their fingers stained with ink. A family sits on a velvet-covered settee, the mother gently wiping a smudge of soot from her daughter's cheek with a lace handkerchief, while the father stares blankly into the flames, his pocket watch open in his hand as if he is counting the seconds until his next train. You walk toward the grand staircase, but the porter stops and points toward a dark alcove framed by heavy iron pillars. Inside the alcove sits a strange metallic cage with heavy mesh walls and double iron doors. It is the hotel's proudest technological marvel, the hydraulic ascending room. The porter pulls open the outer iron gate with a loud clanging rattle that echoes through the lobby. You step inside, the floor of the cage creaking slightly under your weight. The interior is surprisingly plush, lined with green velvet panels and containing a small leather bench, though the smell of hydraulic fluid and heavy grease is impossible to ignore. The porter steps in beside you, closes the gates, and pulls on a thick, greasy rope that runs through the ceiling. For a second, nothing happens. Then, with a deep, shuddering groan from the basement, the cage begins to rise. It is a slow, heavy ascent, accompanied by the sound of rushing water in the pipes behind the walls. A rhythmic, roaring sound that rises and falls as the hydraulic pressure pushes you upward. Through the iron mesh of the cage, you watch the lobby sink away, the flickering gas lamps turning into warm, wobbly stars, the travelers by the fire shrinking into quiet, dark figures. The elevator rises past the mezzanine, past the first floor. Its movement so slow and steady, it feels like you are being lifted by some ancient mechanical giant. The air inside the shaft is cooler, smelling strongly of iron, grease, and the cold drafts that wander between the floors. You watch the brickwork of the elevator shaft slide past, inches from your face, its red bricks dusty and rough, held together by thick gray mortar. Finally, with a gentle bouncing sigh, the cage comes to a halt. The porter pulls the rope again, locking the mechanism, and slides the iron gates open. You step out onto the second-floor corridor, your feet sinking into a carpet that is thick, soft, and slightly damp. The corridor seems to stretch on forever, a long, narrow tunnel of dark wood paneling and red wallpaper. Every 20 feet, a brass gas bracket arm juts out from the wall, holding a glass globe that glows with a soft, flickering yellow light. The gas lights do not burn silently. They emit a faint, high-pitched whistle, a gentle shh that sounds like dry leaves blowing across a pavement. The drafts that wander down the long hallway make the flames dance, casting long, wobbly shadows that stretch and shrink along the walls. The air up here is quieter, but the station is never truly gone. Underneath the carpet, you can feel a faint, persistent vibration, a tiny tremor in the floorboards that tells you a heavy goods train is slowly rumbling through the tunnels beneath the hotel. It is a reassuring vibration, a reminder that the world of industry is still turning, still working, while you are safe and warm inside your brick fortress. The porter leads you down the corridor, his boots making no sound on the heavy carpet. You pass door after door of polished mahogany, each one holding a brass plate with a number. Behind one door, you hear the muffled sound of someone snoring, a slow rhythmic rumble that blends with the whistling gas lamps. Behind another, there is the quiet splash of water and the clink of a ceramic basin, someone washing away the day's journey. Finally, the porter stops in front of room 104. He inserts the heavy brass key into the lock, the mechanism turning with a loud, satisfying clink-clack that sounds like a miniature vault opening. He pushes the door open, steps inside, and places your bag on a wooden stand near the door. You step into your room, and the door closes behind you with a solid, heavy thud that shuts out the long corridor, the whistling gas lamps, and the distant murmurs of the lobby. You are finally in your own space, your own quiet sanctuary in the middle of the great industrial engine. You stand just inside the threshold of room 104, your back resting against the heavy, dark mahogany of the door. The sound of your own breathing is the loudest thing in the room, a soft, rhythmic whisper that slowly settles into the cool air. The room is large, far larger than you expected, with a ceiling so high it seems to lose itself in the shadows above. The wallpaper is a deep, patterned crimson, decorated with elaborate velvet flocking that has captured decades of dust, coal gas, and the faint, lingering memories of everyone who has ever stayed here. To your left, a massive four-poster bed dominates the space, its heavy oak posts carved with twisting vines that look like they were modeled after some ancient, forgotten forest. The bed is draped in thick, dark green woolen curtains, designed not for luxury, but to shield you from the draft that slips under the door and the fine, invisible mist of soot that floats through the window cracks. The mattress is high and lumpy, stuffed with coarse horsehair that crackles softly when you press your hand against the heavy, damp linen sheets. You take a slow, cautious step forward, your boots sinking into the carpet. It is a thick Axminster, once vibrant with patterns of roses and gold scrolls, but now faded to a dull, mysterious gray along the path between the bed, the washstand, and the fireplace. With every step you take, a tiny, almost imperceptible puff of dust rises from the wool, smelling faintly of old carpets and dried rain. It is a dry, comforting scent, the smell of a room that has survived 100 winters and is prepared to survive another. You walk toward the window, the floorboards beneath the carpet creaking with a slow, heavy groan creak that sounds like the building is welcoming you in its own creaky language. You reach the window, a towering sash window with dark wooden frames that have swollen from the constant dampness of the station air. You place your hand against the glass. It is freezing, a solid sheet of cold that sends a shiver straight up your arm. Through the glass, which is coated in a thin, greasy layer of soot and rain streaks, you look down at the terminal below. You are directly above Platform 4. The view is spectacular, but in a heavy industrial way. The massive glass and iron roof of the station curves over the tracks like the ribcage of some colossal iron whale, its panes black with coal dust and glistening with the evening rain. Down below, the platform is a wobbly, flickering world of gas jets and steam. A lone porter is pushing a heavy wooden trolley loaded with mail sacks, his head bowed against the cold draft, the iron wheels of his cart making a loud, rhythmic, clattering clack that rises up through the glass and rattles the window frames in their slots. Farther down the line, a passenger locomotive is resting, its massive boiler painted a deep dark green that looks black in the shadows. The engine is slowly breathing, its safety valves emitting a steady, gentle hiss of white steam that rises up in wobbly clouds, hits the glass roof above, and condenses into heavy drops of water that patter back down onto the tracks. Every now and then, the engine's firebox door is opened, casting a sudden, warm orange glow across the soot-stained brick walls of the station, a brief, fiery star that disappears as quickly as it came, leaving the gloom feeling even deeper than before. You turn away from the freezing window, your shoulders shivering slightly as the chill of the room begins to sink through your woolen coat. You need a fire? In the corner of the room, set into a massive hearth of gray, soot-stained marble, sits a small black cast-iron grate. It is empty, cold, and silent, looking more like an old stove than a source of warmth. Beside it sits a small, heavy iron bucket filled with dark, gleaming lumps of coal, a handful of dry pine kindling, and a box of long wooden matches. You kneel down on the heavy woolen rug in front of the hearth. The rug is rough, scratchy, and smells of soot and old smoke, a concentrated version of the room's history. You reach into the bucket and pull out a piece of coal. It is heavy, cold, and leaves a dark, greasy smudge on your fingertips, a tiny badge of honor from the age of steam. You place a few of the larger lumps at the bottom of the grate arranging them in a rough circle, leaving space in the center for the kindling. Next, you take the dry pine kindling. It is light, clean, and smells wonderfully of pine resin, a sudden bright scent that cuts through the heavy, damp air of the room. You break the thin sticks with your hands, the wood snapping with a sharp, clean crack that sounds incredibly loud in the quiet room. You stack the kindling in a small pyramid in the center of the coal, just as you've done 100 times before. You reach for the box of matches. It is a small slide-open box made of thin wood, the label printed with an image of a roaring lion in dark red ink. You slide the box open, the matches rattling softly, their sulphurous heads looking like tiny dark berries in the dim light. You pull one out. The match is long, rough, and slightly damp from the air. You strike it against the side of the box. With a sudden sharp scritch, the match flares to life. A brilliant, wobbly burst of blue and yellow light fills the hearth, casting long, dramatic shadows of your hands across the marble mantelpiece. The smell of burning sulfur fills the air, a sharp chemical scent that is immediately pulled up the cold chimney by the draft. You hold the flame to the dry pine kindling, watching as the yellow light catches the thin splinters of wood. For a second, the flame hesitates, flickering wildly in the draft that slips down the chimney. You hold your breath, your hands cupped around the tiny light, protecting it from the cold air. Then, with a soft, crackling pop, the pine resin catches. The yellow flame grows, spreading quickly from stick to stick, climbing the wooden pyramid with a happy, crackling energy. You sit back on your heels, watching the fire grow. The yellow flames lick the cold, dark lumps of coal, their heat slowly warming the iron grate until it emits a faint metallic clink as the metal expands. The coal begins to catch, not with a burst of flame, but with a slow, heavy glow. A thick, yellow-gray smoke rises from the grate, swirling softly before being drawn up the chimney by the powerful draft of the station steam. The heat is slow to arrive, but when it does, it is wonderful. You hold your cold hands out toward the grate, the warmth prickling your skin, melting away the chill of the damp street and the freezing elevator ride. The fire casts a warm, dancing orange glow across your face and the front of your coat, making the rest of the dark room feel even larger and more mysterious. You watch the flames dance, their movement wobbly and unpredictable. The fire is a living thing in this cold, brick tower, a tiny, bright shield against the massive, dark engine of the station below. The coal burns with a slow, deep energy, the orange embers glowing brighter and brighter until they look like a small pool of lava captured in iron. As you watch the fire, you notice a small brass lever set into the wall beside the mantelpiece. It is the control for the gas bracket that hangs above the writing desk. You stand up, your knees creaking in protest, and walk over to it. The gas bracket is a beautiful arm of polished brass, curving out from the wall like a golden vine. At the end of the arm sits a small white ceramic burner inside a frosted glass globe decorated with patterns of ferns. You turn the brass key on the bracket, listening closely. With a soft, whistling hiss, the coal gas begins to flow. The smell is sharp, heavy, and slightly sweet, the characteristic odor of Victorian illumination. You strike another match, hold the flame to the ceramic burner, and turn the key fully. With a soft, hollow pop, the gas ignites. A bright, steady yellow flame spreads across the burner, casting a clear, warm light over the lopsided writing desk. The light is different from the fire. It is steady, bright, and slightly green around the edges, illuminating the small inkwell, the wobbly stack of writing paper, and the fine layer of gray dust that sits on the desk's leather surface. You stand in the center of the room, looking around at your domain. The orange firelight from the hearth and the yellow gaslight from the bracket fight the shadows, creating a wobbly, shifting world of color and light. The dark mahogany furniture gleams in the warmth. The green wool bed curtains look rich and soft, and the red wallpaper glows with a deep, velvety intensity. You are warm. The chill is still there, lurking in the corners of the room, behind the heavy wardrobe, and against the freezing window pane. But here, in the center of the room, by the fire, you are safe. You take off your heavy wool coat, the fabric feeling stiff and cold in your hands. You walk over to the massive mahogany wardrobe, its double doors held shut by a brass latch that is shaped like a sleeping lion. You turn the latch, the metal making a loud, heavy clank as it releases. You pull the doors open. The interior of the wardrobe is dark, cold, and smells strongly of cedar wood, old wool, and the faint, sweet scent of lavender water that some long ago guest must have spilled. You hang your coat on a heavy wooden hanger, the wood smooth and dark from years of use. As you slide the hanger onto the brass rail, it makes a dry, sliding sound that echoes softly inside the wooden cabinet. You close the wardrobe doors, the latch clicking shut with a final, satisfying sound. You walk back to the fire, pull the heavy oak armchair closer to the hearth, and let yourself sink into the worn, green velvet seat. The chair is lumpy, the springs creaking loudly under your weight, but it is incredibly comfortable. You lean your head back against the velvet, closing your eyes, letting the warmth of the fire wash over your face. Through the floorboards, the steady rhythmic chugging of the locomotive below continues, a slow, heavy huff, huff, huff that sounds like a giant lullaby. The window frames rattle softly as a distant whistle blows, a long, lonely sound that travels through the mist and the rain, reminding you that the world is still moving, still working, while you are here, safe in the warmth of room 104, waiting for the night to truly begin. The warmth of the fire has slowly crept into your bones, loosening the tight, shivering muscles of your shoulders. You sit in the deep, worn velvet of the oak armchair, your eyes heavy, staring at the glowing orange caverns between the burning lumps of coal. The room is quiet, but it is not a silent room. It is a room with its own internal rhythm. In the far corner, standing tall and dark against the crimson flock wallpaper, is a grandfather clock. It is a massive piece of Victorian engineering, its oak case dark as molasses, its brass face gleaming with wobbly reflections of the gaslight. The pendulum swings with a slow, heavy tock, tick, that seems to measure not just seconds, but the weight of the building itself. The mechanical gears inside hum with a tiny metallic whisper, a steady, whirring sigh that rises and falls as the weights slowly descend inside their wooden prison. It is a hypnotic sound, a rhythmic, mechanical lullaby that has been ticking in this exact spot since the hotel first opened its doors, completely indifferent to the storms outside or the trains rumbling below. You slowly push yourself up from the armchair, the worn velvet releasing you with a soft, dusty sigh. The air away from the fire is cooler, a gentle reminder that the room is still a fortress surrounded by the damp Victorian autumn. You walk toward the massive four-poster bed, your stockinged feet sinking silently into the faded roses of the carpet. You stand at the edge of the bed, looking up at the elaborate wooden structure. The 4 oak posts are thick as tree trunks, rising up to hold a heavy dark wooden canopy that looms over the mattress like a protective roof. The wood is covered in intricate carvings, patterns of oak leaves, acorns, and small stylized lions that seem to stare down at you with sleepy, indifferent eyes. You run your hand along one of the posts. The oak is cool, smooth, and solid as iron, its grain polished by the hands of 1,000 travelers who have stood in this exact spot, clutching their brass keys and wishing for a night of uninterrupted rest. You reach out and touch the heavy green woolen curtains that hang from the canopy. The wool is thick, dense, and slightly rough to the touch, smelling faintly of the damp street and old dyes. These curtains are not decorative. They are functional shields. In the 19th century, the air inside a railway hotel is never truly clean. A fine, invisible mist of coal soot and steam floats through the cracks in the sash windows, settling over everything like a gray spirit. By pulling these heavy green drapes closed, you create a private sealed chamber inside the bed, a warm woolen cocoon where you can sleep without breathing in the industrial dust of the terminal below. You place your hand on the mattress. It is high, rising up to your waist, and covered in a heavy white linen counterpane decorated with intricate knotted fringes. You press down on the mattress. It does not sink like a modern feather bed. Instead, it offers a firm, springy resistance, accompanied by a soft, crackling rustle scrunch from deep within. The mattress is stuffed with coarse horsehair, the traditional filling of the era, chosen for its durability and its ability to withstand the dampness of the English climate. The horsehair crackles softly as you shift your weight, a dry, rustic sound that sounds like walking through dry leaves in an autumn forest. You sit down on the edge of the bed, the oak frame creaking beneath you with a slow, heavy groan that echoes softly in the high ceiling. You pull back the heavy white counterpane, revealing the sheets beneath. They are made of thick, unbleached linen, stiff and cool, smelling faintly of lavender water and coarse laundry soap. These are not soft sheets. They have a heavy tactile quality, a textured roughness that feels clean, honest, and incredibly durable. They're cool to the touch, a refreshing contrast to the warmth of the fire that still glows in the hearth across the room. At the head of the bed sits a single, massive bolster pillow. It is a long cylindrical cushion that stretches across the entire width of the bed, looking more like a log than a pillow. It is stuffed firmly with feathers and straw, designed to prop you up in a semi-upright position, rather than allowing you to lie flat. In the 1870s, many people believed that sleeping completely flat was bad for the digestion and invited drafts into the lungs, so you are expected to rest your shoulders against the firm bolster, drifting off in a dignified, slightly elevated state. You reach for the blankets stacked at the foot of the bed. There are 3 of them, heavy, thick blankets woven from Welsh wool, dyed in stripes of dark blue and crimson. They are heavy, so heavy that when you lift them, your arms tire slightly under the weight. You pull them up, spreading them over the stiff linen sheets, preparing your nest for the night. As you arrange the blankets, a sudden, deep vibration rumbles through the bedstead. It starts in the floorboards, climbs up the heavy oak posts, and shudders through the horsehair mattress. A slow, powerful tremor that makes the brass rings on the bed curtains rattle softly against their rods. You hold your breath listening. Down below, on platform 4, a heavy freight train is slowly pulling out. You can hear the locomotive's exhaust, a deep, deafening pant that sounds like some prehistoric beast pulling a mountain. The iron wheels of the coal wagons clank and groan as they grind against the cold rails, a slow, rhythmic screech-clack that vibrates through the very brickwork of the hotel. The building does not shake with fear. It vibrates with solidarity, its massive brick walls absorbing the power of the steam engine and turning it into a deep, soothing hum that slowly fades away as the train disappears into the dark tunnels outside the station. You lie back against the firm bolster pillow, your head resting on the cool, stiff linen. You pull the heavy Welsh blankets up to your chin, their weight settling over you like a warm, protective hand. The wool is slightly scratchy against your neck, but the heat it traps is immediate and absolute. You feel completely enclosed, completely insulated from the rest of the world. Through the small opening in the green bed curtains, you can see the writing desk across the room. The yellow gaslight from the brass bracket flickers softly, casting wobbly, fern-shaped shadows across the red wallpaper. The gas jet continues its quiet, high-pitched whistle, a gentle shh that sounds like water boiling in a distant kettle. On the mantelpiece, the fire has settled into a deep, steady burn. The bright yellow flames have gone, replaced by a glowing pile of red and orange embers that look like miniature stars captured in the dark iron grate. Every now and then, a tiny blue flame licks the side of a coal lump, a silent, ghostly light that casts a brief, wobbly shadow across the ceiling before vanishing back into the warmth. The grandfather clock in the corner continues its slow, patient work. Tock, tick, tock, tick. The sound is so steady, so regular, that it begins to disappear from your conscious mind, turning into a background rhythm that matches the steady beating of your own heart. You lie in the warm cocoon of the four-poster bed, listening to the symphony of the industrial night. In the distance, a steam whistle blows, a long, hollow sound that is softened by the mist and the rain, sounding like a lonely seabird calling out from the harbor. The rain patters against the glass dome of the terminal, a heavy, rhythmic clicking that sounds like 1,000 tiny fingers tapping on the glass. You feel incredibly safe, incredibly secure in this brick fortress. The hotel is a monument to human ambition, a giant of iron and stone that stands proud in the middle of the soot and the storm. And here, in the heart of the giant, in room 104, you are tucked away, warm, dry, and protected, listening to the heavy mechanical heartbeat of the world as it slowly rumbles you to sleep. You close your eyes, letting the heavy Welsh blankets press you down into the horsehair mattress. The mattress crackles softly under your head, a gentle rustic sound that seems to speak of quiet fields and dry grass, a world away from the soot and steam of the station. The pendulum swings, the steam whistles blow, and you let yourself drift deeper and deeper into the warm, comforting dark. You lie in the warm cocoon of the four-poster bed for a long, quiet moment, your body perfectly relaxed under the weight of the Welsh wool blankets. But the dust of the journey is still there, a thin, invisible grit that has settled over your face and hands during the long train ride. Your skin feels slightly tight, smelling faintly of sulfur, coal grease, and the cold rain of the city streets. To truly rest, you must wash away the industrial night. You slowly pull back the heavy wool blankets, the cool air of the room immediately rushing in to greet you. It is a gentle, refreshing chill that makes you shiver slightly, but wakes up your senses. You swing your legs out of the bed, your feet finding the soft wool of the rose-patterned carpet. You walk over to the washstand in the corner of the room. It is a simple, elegant piece of furniture made of polished mahogany with a white marble top that is cold as winter ice. Sitting in the center of the marble is a large, heavy ceramic basin and a matching water pitcher, decorated with hand-painted patterns of blue willow trees and small wobbly bridges. You lift the pitcher. It is incredibly heavy, the water inside swishing softly with a cold, hollow sound. The hotel's private rooms do not have running water. That is a luxury reserved for the grandest suites on the first floor. If you want a proper wash with warm running water, you must visit the shared washroom down the hall. You drape a thick rough linen towel over your shoulder. The linen is stiff, unbleached, and has a heavy textured grid that feels like it could scrub the rust off an iron gate. But it is clean and dry. You pick up your heavy brass room key from the writing desk, its metal cold and solid in your hand, and walk toward the door. You turn the key in the lock, the mechanism releasing with a loud, heavy clank-clack that echoes softly in the high ceiling. You push the door open and step out into the long crimson corridor of the second floor. The hallway is quiet, but it is a drafty, whistling quiet. The gas brackets along the walls flicker softly, their flames dancing in the drafts that wander down from the staircase. The gas jets emit their constant, high-pitched shh, yeah, a steady whistle that sounds like 1,000 tiny grasshoppers singing in the dark. You walk down the corridor, your stockinged feet making no sound on the thick, damp carpet. You pass the polished mahogany doors of other guests, listening to the muffled sounds of the night. Behind one door, you hear the quiet clink of a glass tumbler and the low rumbling murmur of two travelers discussing their schedules. Behind another, there's only the slow, rhythmic breathing of someone who has already surrendered to the railway lullaby. At the far end of the hallway, a door of frosted glass framed in heavy oak stands slightly ajar, glowing with a wobbly green-yellow light. It is the shared washroom. You push the door open, the heavy glass swinging slowly on its massive brass hinges. Step inside. The washroom is a cavernous space, tiled from floor to ceiling in glossy cream-colored Victorian tiles that reflect the gaslight in long wobbly streaks. The air here is different from the corridor. It is thick, humid, and smells strongly of steam, hot metal, and the sharp medicinal scent of carbolic acid. Along the wall stands a row of 3 massive white porcelain wash basins, each one supported by heavy cast iron legs painted a dark green. The basins are huge, deep as troughs, their white glaze slightly crazed with a spiderweb of tiny cracks from years of hot water and hard use. Above each basin juts a pair of heavy brass taps, wobbly and pitted from steam, looking like the controls of some small submarine. The plumbing in this hotel is a proud monument to modern sanitation, but it is a noisy, temperamental system. The copper pipes that run along the tiled walls do not carry water silently. They hum, groan, and clank with a constant mechanical energy. As the steam pressure from the boilers in the basement rises and falls, the pipes emit a series of rhythmic thump, thump, thumps that sound like a tiny blacksmith working behind the wall. Every now and then, a sudden hiss-gurgle runs through the system, a sound of rushing water and trapped air that makes the brass taps vibrate in their mounts. You walk over to the middle basin. In a small recessed dish of white ceramic beside the tap sits the hotel's soap. It is a large square slab of green carbolic soap, the signature cleansing agent of the Victorian era. You pick it up. It is heavy, hard, and has a strong chemical scent of tar, pine, and absolute cleanliness. Carbolic soap was prized for its antiseptic qualities, a powerful weapon against the dirt, germs, and coal dust of the industrial city. It is not a gentle soap. It does not promise soft skin or exotic perfumes. It promises to kill whatever is on you, leaving you smelling like a newly scrubbed hospital ward or a clean steamship platform. You turn the right-hand tap. The brass handle is stiff, requiring a firm twist of your wrist. With a sudden sputtering hiss, the water begins to flow. It does not run smoothly at first. It comes in a series of violent, white splashes, spraying a fine mist of cold water across the porcelain basin before settling into a steady, heavy stream. The water is clear, but it has a slight mineral tang to the smell, a clean, earthy scent that tells you it has traveled through miles of iron pipes from the city reservoirs. You cup your hands under the stream, the water freezing cold against your skin, sending a sudden sharp wave of alertness straight to your brain. You splash the cold water onto your face, the chill making you gasp softly, the water running down your cheeks and neck, washing away the tight, dry grit of the train ride. You pick up the green slab of carbolic soap, holding it under the running water. You rub your hands together, the soap producing a thin, white, low-lather foam that is surprisingly slick. The medicinal scent of the carbolic acid grows stronger, filling the air around the basin with a clean, comforting shield of pine and tar. You scrub your hands, your wrists, and your face, the soap tingling slightly on your skin. You can feel the grease and sulfur of the steam engines dissolving, the rough grit of your skin feeling clean and smooth once more. You rinse, splashing the cold, iron-tasting water over your face until the soap is gone, leaving your skin feeling cold, tight, and incredibly fresh. You reach for the rough linen towel on your shoulder. You press the stiff, textured fabric against your face, the wool-like grid of the linen massage scrubbing your skin, stimulating the circulation until your cheeks feel warm and tingling. As you dry your hands, you look up into the mirror that hangs above the basin. It is a large rectangular mirror framed in dark soot-dusted oak, the silvering along the edges starting to yellow and peel, creating a wobbly antique frame of gold around your reflection. In the wobbly yellow light of the gas bracket beside the mirror, your face looks fresh, clean, and completely renewed. The dark smudges of coal dust gone from under your eyes, replaced by a healthy, warm glow. The washroom is quiet now, save for the steady drip, drip, drip of the tap and the slow rhythmic thump, thump of the copper pipes behind the wall. The wobbly gaslight flickers softly, its shadow jumping across the cream tiles like a quiet green ghost. You feel a deep, clean satisfaction, a sense of having washed away not just the dirt of the journey, but the worries of the day. You are clean, fresh, and ready for whatever the night brings. You turn the stiff brass handle of the tap, the water flow slowing to a stop with a final clanking gurgle inside the pipe. You fold the rough linen towel over your arm, pick up your cold brass room key from the edge of the marble basin, and walk back toward the frosted glass door. As you step back out into the long, quiet corridor, the draft from the staircase catches you, but this time you do not shiver. Your skin is warm, tingling with life, and the heavy linen towel on your shoulder feels like a soft woolen wrap. You walk slowly back to room 104, the slow rhythmic tock-tick of the grandfather clock in the distance, welcoming you back to your warm crimson sanctuary, where your glowing coal fire and your four-poster bed are waiting to give you the deepest sleep you've ever known. The cold, fresh water of the washroom has left you feeling awake, but it has also brought with it a quiet, insistent hunger. The long hours of traveling, of watching the wet English countryside roll past the carriage window, have taken their toll. You need something warm, something heavy, to line your stomach and prepare your body for sleep. You decide to head downstairs to the Grand Coffee Room, the traditional name for the hotel's main dining hall. You dress in dry, comfortable clothes, the fabric feeling warm and clean against your newly washed skin. You drape a light wool scarf around your neck, grab your room key, and step back out into the long, quiet corridor. You descend the grand stone staircase, your stockinged feet replaced by your dry, comfortable traveling shoes, which make a soft, rhythmic thud-thud on the carpeted steps. As you near the lobby, the air grows warmer, carrying with it the rich, comforting scent of roasting beef and wood smoke from the fireplace. You turn to the right, passing under a massive stone archway decorated with carved stone leaves and grapes, and step into the Grand Coffee Room. It is a colossal space, designed to impress and slightly intimidate anyone who enters. The ceiling is so high it seems to have its own weather system, lost in a dark vault of heavy oak beams and massive, white plaster panels. Hanging from the center of the ceiling are three colossal bronze chandeliers, each one holding dozens of flickering gas jets inside frosted glass globes. The light they cast is a warm, golden lake that floats above the room, leaving the corners in a deep, velvety shadow. The floor is made of highly polished oak parquetry, gleaming in the gaslight like dark water, covered in places by large, thick Persian rugs that help muffle the sound of footsteps. Along the walls, which are paneled in dark walnut up to your shoulder, sit dozens of tall, narrow windows that look out onto the dark platforms of the station. The rain is still pattering against the glass, a constant rhythmic clicking that sounds like dry peas being shaken in a ceramic bowl. The room is populated by a few quiet, late-night diners, spread out across the tables like survivors of a long journey. The atmosphere is quiet, respectful, and deeply subdued. In the far corner, two elderly men in dark wool suits are debating the price of iron ore, their voices low and serious, their fingers tracing the path of a new railway line. Their low, serious whispers rising and falling in perfect harmony with the clicking rain. At another table, a young clerk sits alone, a small notebook open beside his plate, his pen scratching softly as he records his expenses for the day. No one speaks loudly. Everyone seems to respect the quiet, industrial peace of the night. A waiter in a black tailcoat and a crisp white apron that reaches down to his boots approaches you. His movements are slow, deliberate, and entirely silent. He leads you to a quiet table in an alcove near one of the tall windows, pulls out a heavy oak chair, and hands you a large leather-bound menu with the hotel's crest stamped in gold on the front. You sit down, the heavy chair solid and secure beneath you. The table is draped in a thick white damask tablecloth, so stiff and heavily starched, it feels like cardboard. In the center of the table sits a single heavy brass candlestick, the yellow flame of the wax candle flickering softly in the draught from the window. The menu is a list of heavy, comforting Victorian classics, designed for travelers who have spent hours in cold, drafty carriages. There are no light salads or exotic ingredients here. This is a cuisine built on starch, fat, and slow boiling. You decide to start with the house specialty, a bowl of thick mutton broth, followed by roasted beef with Yorkshire pudding and cabbage boiled into submission. The waiter bows once, his movement so smooth he looks like he is sliding on rails, and vanishes back into the shadows toward the kitchen. You sit quietly, looking out the window beside you. Through the streaks of rain and soot on the glass, you can see Platform 5. A small wobbly shunting engine is slowly backing down the line, its brass safety valve emitting a gentle, steady hiss that sounds like a quiet sigh. The driver is standing in the open cab, his face illuminated by the red glow of the firebox, his dark silhouette holding a heavy oil lantern. The engine is moving so slowly, it seems to be drifting, its iron wheels making a soft, rhythmic clack, clack, clack on the joints of the rails. The waiter returns, carrying a massive silver-domed tray that smells wonderfully of boiled herbs and rich fat. He lifts the dome with a quick, practiced flourish, releasing a warm cloud of steam that smells of celery, barley, and slow-cooked mutton. He places the bowl in front of you. It is a large, heavy ceramic bowl decorated with patterns of green ivy leaves. The broth is thick, a deep golden brown color, filled with plump grains of barley, soft chunks of turnip, and tender shreds of mutton that look like they have been boiling since yesterday morning. Beside the bowl sits a small plate holding two dense, round pilot biscuits, hard and gray as slate. You pick up the soup spoon. It is made of heavy Victorian silver, so large and solid it feels like a small shovel in your hand. You dip it into the thick broth, lifting a spoonful of the warm, steaming liquid to your lips. The broth is rich, heavy, and incredibly savory, a concentrated explosion of slow-cooked flavor. The barley is soft and chewy, the turnips melt on your tongue, and the mutton is so tender it dissolves without effort. It is the ultimate comfort food, a warm, thick shield that immediately begins to fight off the dampness of the long journey. You take one of the pilot biscuits. It is incredibly hard, requiring a firm squeeze of your fingers to break. You drop a few pieces into the hot broth, watching as the dense bread slowly absorbs the liquid, softening until it becomes chewy and delicious. The waiter returns with the main course, a thick slab of roasted beef, cooked until it is a deep, dark brown, swimming in a lake of rich, black gravy. Beside it sits a large, puffed square of Yorkshire pudding, its golden crust crisp and glistening with fat, and a mound of green cabbage that has been boiled until it has surrendered all color and resistance. It is a plate of absolute, uncompromising density. The beef is rich and tender, the gravy is salty and thick, and the cabbage is soft as butter, having been cooked long enough to remove any trace of crunch or unpredictability. It is a meal designed to be digested slowly, a heavy anchor that will pull you down into a dreamless sleep. You eat slowly, savoring every bite, listening to the clatter of silver cutlery and the low whispers of the room. The grandfather clock in the lobby chimes the hour, 10 slow, deep bells that vibrate through the parquetry floor and the mahogany walls. A comforting, regular reminder of the passing night. After you finish the last bite of the roasted beef, the waiter clears your plate and asks if you would like some tea. You nod, your body feeling pleasantly heavy, your eyelids starting to droop in the warmth of the room. He returns with a heavy brown ceramic teapot, a white porcelain cup and saucer, and a small silver jug of thick cream. You pour the tea. The liquid is dark, almost black, smelling strongly of wood smoke and earth. You take a sip. The tea is brewed with the station's own well water, drawn from deep beneath the red sandstone layers of the city. It is incredibly hard, mineral-heavy water, and as you drink, you can taste a faint, distinct tang of iron on your tongue, the unmistakable flavor of the pipes and the sandstone. It is a strong, honest cup of tea, tasting of the industrial earth itself, a rich, dark brew that warms your chest and settles your stomach. You add a splash of the thick cream, watching the dark liquid turn into a wobbly golden brown swirl. You take another sip, the cream softening the iron tang, leaving a rich velvety finish that is incredibly satisfying. You sit for a long, quiet moment, clutching the warm porcelain cup in your hands, staring out the window at the dark platform. The shunting engine has gone, leaving platform 5 silent and empty, the glistening rails reflecting the wobbly yellow light of the gas lamps in long golden needles. The rain is still falling, a steady hypnotic beat that seems to wrap around the hotel, sealing you inside this grand, warm sanctuary. You feel a deep, absolute contentment. Your stomach is full of warm broth and roasted beef. Your chest is warm from the iron-heavy tea, and your mind is perfectly quiet, completely distracted from the worries of your modern life by the heavy, comforting textures of the 19th century. You place the cup back on the saucer with a quiet clink, slide your hand into your pocket to find your cold brass room key, and prepare to make the slow, sleepy climb back to room 104, where your four-poster bed and your glowing coal fire are waiting to carry you away. You make the slow, heavy walk back to the lobby, your body feeling wonderfully warm and weighed down by the rich mutton broth and roasted beef. The receptionist behind the oak counter bows again as you pass, his silent, dark figure casting a long shadow across the encaustic tiles. You climb the grand stone staircase, your steps slow and deliberate, and return to the second-floor corridor. The gas lamps are still whistling their quiet shh, the drafts making the wobbly yellow flames dance against the crimson wallpaper. You unlock the door to room 104, the heavy brass key making its solid clank-clack in the lock, and step inside your warm, private sanctuary. The fire in the hearth has burned down to a beautiful, steady pile of glowing red coal embers, casting a soft, warm orange light across the green velvet armchair and the oak bedposts. The air inside the room is dry and cozy, a perfect shield against the cold rain that is still clicking against the tall window panes. You walk over to the four-poster bed, pull back the heavy Welsh wool blankets, and climb in. The stiff linen sheets are cool against your skin for a brief second, before the warmth of your body is captured and held by the heavy Welsh wool. You reach out and grab the edges of the green woolen curtains that hang from the canopy, pulling them together until they meet in the center with a soft, heavy sliding sound. You are now sealed inside your own private cocoon, a warm, dark sanctuary within the brick fortress of the hotel. The orange glow of the embers is gone, replaced by a perfect, soothing darkness that is broken only by a tiny thread of warm light that slips through the gap in the drapes. You rest your shoulders against the firm bolster pillow, letting your head sink into the cool linen. You pull the heavy blue and crimson wool blankets up to your chin, their solid weight pressing you down into the coarse horsehair mattress. The mattress crackles softly under you, a dry, rustic rustle scrunch that sounds like a quiet autumn wind blowing through dried grass. The room is dark, but the station below is alive with the sounds of the industrial night. It is a world of steam, iron, and stone, and as you lie in the warm dark, you begin to listen to the grand mechanical symphony of the terminal. It starts with the shunting engines on Platform 3. These are small, hard-working locomotives whose job is to organize the carriages and coal wagons for the morning trains. You can hear them moving through the wet dark, their boilers breathing with a slow, rhythmic huff. Huff. Huff that sounds like a giant metal beast whispering secrets in the dark. The engines move with a steady, deliberate pace, their iron wheels making a soft, repeating clack joint, as they roll over the rail gaps. Suddenly, a sharp white hiss of steam breaks the rhythm, a valve on the engine releasing excess pressure into the night air. The steam rushes out with a loud rushing sound that rises up through the floorboards, hits the glass roof of the station, and turns into a soft, whispering sigh as it condenses in the damp mist. Then comes the clanging of the couplers. When the shunting engine backs into a line of heavy oak carriages, the iron linkages collide with a sudden, metallic clang that echoes through the glass dome like a distant bell. It is a sharp, solid sound, but it is a regular sound, a beat in the mechanical clockwork of the terminal that tells you the work of the night is progressing exactly as it should. As the carriages are linked, the train begins to move. The iron wheels, cold and wet from the rain, grind against the steel rails, producing a high-pitched, metallic screech groan that rises up through the brickwork of the hotel. It is a long, weeping sound, a song of friction and power that vibrates softly in the brass rings of your bed curtains, making them rattle against their rods with a quiet, metallic whisper. Underneath all of these sounds, deeper and more constant than the chugging or the clanging, is the rumble of the coal wagons. These are heavy iron and oak carts, filled with tons of dark coal from the northern mines, being wheeled slowly across the platforms by teams of heavy horses or small steam winches. The rumble is a low, humming vibration that travels up through the stone pillars of the hotel, through the oak floorboards of room 104, and into the frame of your four-poster bed. It is a vibration you feel in the soles of your feet and the middle of your chest, a deep, resonant hum that matches the steady tock-tick of the grandfather clock in the corner of your room. It is a grounding vibration, a physical reminder that the hotel is a solid, heavy giant of stone and mortar, anchored deep in the earth, completely unmoved by the mechanical forces that play across its platforms. Just as you are settling into the rhythm of the shunting engines, a new sound begins to build in the distance. It starts as a low, distant murmur, a quiet chugging that rises from the dark tunnels outside the city. It grows louder, the chugging turning into a heavy, thunderous roar that shakes the very air of the station. It is the Midnight Mail Express, the fastest train of the night, roaring through the terminal on its way to the coast. The locomotive bursts into the station, its massive boiler chugging with a frantic, powerful huff, 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 that sounds like a storm. The iron wheels of the engine and its dozen heavy mail vans crash over the platform switches with a deafening clack, clack. That echoes through the glass dome like a rolling drum. As the train roars beneath the hotel, a massive, powerful vibration shudders through your four-poster bed. The horsehair mattress rises and falls with a tiny rhythmic tremor. The oak posts groan in their sockets, and the brass curtain rings hum with a frantic, metallic energy. The air inside your green woolen cocoon seems to throb with the power of the steam engine, a warm, pulsing wave of pressure that travels straight through your body. It is a spectacular, terrifying display of industrial power. But as you lie in the warm dark, protected by your heavy blankets and your brick walls, you do not feel afraid. You feel a deep, comforting solidarity. The train is a marvel of progress, a symbol of human strength rushing through the wild night. While you are here, safe and warm in the heart of the fortress, being rocked to sleep by the giant's roar. The Midnight Express flies through the station, its thunderous chugging slowly fading as it plunges back into the dark tunnels on the other side of the city. The heavy vibration in your mattress gradually dies down, turning back into the low, steady thrumming of the basement boilers. The brass rings on the bed curtains fall silent, the oak posts stop their groaning creaks, and the air inside your cocoon settles back into its warm, quiet peace. The symphony of the night returns to its regular, slow-paced rhythm. The shunting engines continue their patient chugging. Huff, huff, huff. The rain patters against the glass dome. Click, 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 click. The grandfather clock in the corner swings its pendulum. Tock, tick, tock, tick. All of these sounds, the chugging, the clicking, the clanking, and the ticking, blend together into one colossal industrial lullaby. It is a regular mechanical heartbeat, a steady, hypnotic rhythm that captures your mind, locking out any racing thoughts of your modern life. You do not try to listen to the individual sounds anymore. You let them wash over you in a warm, dark wave of noise and vibration. You let your body sink deeper into the lumpy horsehair mattress, the Welsh blankets pressing you down with a warm, absolute weight. Your chest rises and falls in perfect time with the slow breathing of the steam engines below. The grandfather clock ticks, the rain falls, the steam whistles blow in the mist, and you let yourself drift away, rocking slowly on the iron wheels of the industrial night. You lie deep within your green woolen cocoon, your body completely relaxed, heavy and warm under the 3 Welsh blankets. The sounds of the shunting engines outside have settled into a distant rhythmic hum, a comforting heartbeat that rolls through the horsehair mattress. But as you lie in the perfect darkness, your ears become tuned to a different set of sounds, quieter, closer sounds that speak of a secret silent world active inside the hotel. It is the sound of the unseen laborers of the night, the vast army of servants who keep this colossal industrial giant clean, heated, and safe while the rest of the world sleeps. It starts with a soft, rhythmic scratching sound that rises from the grand staircase far below. It is a slow, steady swish-scratch that sounds like dry leaves scraping across a gravel path. Down in the lobby, 2 young scullery maids are kneeling on the hard, encaustic tiles, their hands red and chapped from the cold rain and the strong lye water. They are scrubbing the soot from the steps. Every day, the steam engines deposit a fresh gray layer of coal dust onto the hotel's grand marble stairs, a fine, greasy powder that wanders in through the lobby doors and settles into every corner. And every night, while the guests sleep, the maids must scrub it away, their heavy bristle brushes grinding against the stone in a slow, rhythmic dance. The sound is incredibly soothing, a regular, patient scrape that tells you the world is being cleaned, organized, and restored while you rest. The maids do not speak. They work in a silent, sisterly rhythm, their brushes moving in perfect unison, their heavy wooden buckets clinking softly as they are slid from step to step. The scent of their strong carbolic scrub rises up through the banisters, a clean, medicinal aroma that wanders down the corridor of the second floor, blending with the pine resin of your dying fire to create a protective wall of cleanliness around your room. As the maids work their way up the stairs, a different sound emerges from the narrow back corridors of the hotel. It is a quiet, metallic clink-clatter accompanied by the soft, heavy panting of someone carrying a heavy load. It is the coal boy. He is a young lad of 14, his face and hands stained gray with coal dust, wearing a rough woolen tunic that is patched at the elbows. His job is to keep the fires of the hotel burning. In the basement, the hotel's coal vaults are filled with tons of dark, gleaming fuel, and every night, the boy must haul heavy cast-iron buckets of coal up the narrow, winding back staircases, delivering fresh fuel to the grates of every room. You hear his footsteps on the back stairs, a slow, repeating thud, thud, thud that has a heavy-weighted rhythm. He stops at the service door down the hall, his iron bucket clattering softly as he places it on the floorboards. You hear the scrape of his iron scoop as he transfers a few fresh lumps of coal to the bucket outside a neighbor's room, a dry sliding sound that sounds like gravel shifting in a current. It is a hard, exhausting life, a life of endless stairs and heavy iron. But the boy moves with a quiet, patient dignity, his routine as regular as the gears of the grandfather clock in the corner of your room. His work is a vital gear in the great heating machine of the hotel, ensuring that when the guests wake up in the cold gray dawn, their rooms will be warm and their grates filled with glowing embers. Knowing he is out there, quietly tending to the warmth of the building, makes your own bed feel even cozier, a warm sanctuary that is being actively protected by the labor of others. Farther away, down on the wet platforms of the station, another figure is moving through the mist. It is the night watchman. He is an older man, a retired railway guard with a thick gray beard and a heavy wool overcoat that smells of old oil and rain. He walks the platforms with a slow, measured stride, his heavy boots making a solid rhythmic crunch. Crunch, crunch on the wet ballast. In his hand, he carries a heavy brass oil lantern, its yellow flame flickering softly inside a thick glass globe. The lantern casts a wobbly, jumping circle of light across the wet stone platforms, illuminating the dark, glistening rails, the wisping clouds of steam, and the silent, sleeping locomotives lined up in the bays. The watchman's job is to check the security of the terminal. He walks from platform to platform, testing the heavy iron padlocks on the mail sheds, checking the pressure gauges on the stationary boilers, and ensuring that no stray drafts are threatening the steam valves of the engines. Every now and then, he stops to exchange a quiet, rumbling word with the driver of a shunting engine. His low voice, a comforting murmur that is immediately swallowed by the steady hiss of the steam. As he walks, the watchman carries a small brass key on a heavy chain, which he inserts into small mechanical recording clocks mounted on the pillars of the station. Each turn of the key leaves a tiny punch on a paper disc inside the clock, proving to the station master that he has completed his rounds on time, every hour, without fail. The soft click-clock of the recording clocks is a tiny, regular beat in the dark, a mechanical confirmation that the station is secure, watched over by a patient, vigilant guardian. You lie in the warm dark of your four-poster bed, listening to these quiet, human rhythms. The scullery maids scrubbing the stairs. Swish-scratch, swish-scratch. The coal boy hauling the iron buckets. Thud, thud, clink. The night watchman walking the platforms. Crunch, crunch, click. All of these workers are small vital parts of the colossal machine that is the railway station hotel. They do not work for fame or wealth. They work to keep the engine turning, their routines as regular and dependable as the rising of the sun. Their labor creates a deep, absolute sense of order and safety inside the building, a feeling that everything is taken care of. Everything is protected, leaving you with nothing to do but surrender to the night. The wobbly gas lights in the corridor whistle their quiet shh. The grandfather clock in your room swings its pendulum. Tock, tick, tock, tick. The warm orange embers in your hearth click softly as they settle in the grate, a final glowing sigh of heat that warms your room. You let your eyes close fully, your mind drifting away on the steady rhythmic sounds of the night staff. The scratch of the brushes, the clink of the coal buckets, and the crunch of the watchman's boots blend together with the distant chugging of the steam engines, turning into a rich tapestry of sound that wraps around you like a warm wool shawl. You feel completely insulated, completely secure. The world of industry is turning, guarded by 100 patient hands, while you are here, safe in room 104, tucked away in the deep, warm dark, letting the mechanical heartbeat of the terminal carry you down into the deepest, most peaceful sleep of your life. The clock in the lobby has long since struck 2, its heavy bronze chime dissolving into the quiet corridors of the second floor. The hotel has reached its quietest, most profound hour of the night. The drafts that wander down the hallway have settled, the gas lamps whistling with a softer, lazier shh that sounds like dry sand sliding down a glass bottle. In the deep, velvety dark of your green-curtained cocoon in room 104, you lie completely still, wrapped in the warm, absolute weight of your Welsh blankets, drifting on the edge of a deep, dreamless sleep. The storm outside has finally run its course. The heavy, thundering downpour that greeted your arrival has softened into a gentle, rhythmic patter, a quiet, soothing click-click of small raindrops tapping against the tall window panes. Through the glass, the sound is muffled and soft, sounding like a quiet hand brushing against wool. On the colossal glass dome of the terminal below, the rain makes a steady, hypnotic whispering sound, a vast, gentle sigh that wraps around the entire building like a soft, protective sheet. Down on the platforms, the frantic chugging and clanking of the shunting engines has come to a temporary halt. The midnight mail express has long since disappeared into the northern hills, and the tracks are empty, silent, and still. The great iron cathedral of the terminal has reached its hour of rest. In the dark engine bays, 3 massive passenger locomotives are lined up in the shadows, resting like sleeping dragons. They are silent, but they are not inert. As their massive boilers slowly cool down in the damp night air, they emit a series of quiet organic sounds that tell you they are alive, resting and breathing after their long runs. You can hear them ticking. The heavy iron plates of the boilers, having expanded under the intense heat of the coal fires, are now slowly contracting in the cool mist. The metal makes a series of quiet, rhythmic tink, tink, tinks that sound like a tiny hammer tapping on glass. It is a slow, steady clockwork, a mechanical sigh that rises from the dark bays and echoes softly under the vaulted iron glass roof. Beside the ticking boilers, the safety valves are emitting their final, lazy wisps of steam. It is not the sharp white hiss of the early evening. It is a soft, warm huff sigh that rises up in gentle, wobbly spirals, disappearing into the dark shadows of the wooden rafters 60 feet above. The steam carries with it the rich, comforting scent of hot oil, wet coal, and clean steel, a warm, mechanical aroma that has settled over the entire station like a quiet spirit. Underneath the sleeping engines, the water in the drainage channels under the tracks is dripping with a steady, rhythmic drip-drop, drip-drop. The rainwater, filtered through the layers of coal dust and ballast, has found its way to the brick-lined drains below, its slow, watery clockwork measuring the quiet hours of the night in perfect harmony with the pendulum of the grandfather clock in your room. It is a sacred industrial silence. It is not the quiet of the wild forest or the empty fields. It is the peaceful rest of a great machine that has finished its work and is catching its breath before the dawn. The station is a monument of iron and stone, a giant that holds the sleeping city in its warm brick embrace, completely secure, completely at peace. Inside room 104, your coal fire has reached its final, most soothing state. The wobbly orange flames have long since died away, leaving only a deep solid bed of glowing red embers in the bottom of the black iron grate. The embers do not crackle or pop anymore. They burn with a quiet, intense heat, a deep orange star that casts a warm, soft glow across the foot of your bed curtains. Every now and then, a tiny, silent flake of white ash falls through the grate, landing on the iron tray below, with a sound so quiet it is more of a feeling than a noise. The grandfather clock in the corner continues its patient, rhythmic work. Tock-tick, tock-tick. The pendulum swings with a slow, heavy confidence, its brass weight measuring the peaceful seconds with an absolute certainty that makes the room feel secure. The tick is so regular, so steady, that it has become the very foundation of your rest, a grounding rhythm that holds your mind in place, leaving no room for the worries or anxieties of the waking world. You lie in the warm cocoon of the four-poster bed, your stockinged feet warm under the Welsh wool, your head resting comfortably on the cool, stiff linen of the bolster. The crackle of the horsehair mattress under your head has fallen silent, the coarse fibers having settled under your weight. You feel completely enclosed, completely insulated from the rest of the universe. You are safe. The hotel is solid, its 3-foot-thick brick walls keeping out the cold drafts, the rain, and the shadows of the industrial city. The scullery maids have finished scrubbing the stairs, the coal boy has hauled his last bucket, and the night watchman is still walking his slow rhythmic rounds on the platforms below, his wobbly brass lantern checking the locks and the boilers, ensuring that the giant remains secure. You do not try to think anymore. You let your thoughts dissolve into the soft mechanical rhythms of the night, the whispering rain on the glass dome. Shh. The ticking boilers of the sleeping engines. Tink, tink, tink. The dripping water in the sandstone drains. Drip, drop, drip, drop. The pendulum of the grandfather clock. Tock, tick, tock, tick. All of these rhythms blend together, turning into a deep, velvety wave of sound that pulls you down, down, down into the warm, comforting dark. You are floating on the great iron wheels of the steam age, secure in the knowledge that the giant is watching over you, its mechanical heartbeat rocking you to sleep. Your breathing slows, matching the steady chugging of the resting engines. Your heart beats in perfect time with the pendulum of the clock. You let go of the last threads of the waking world, sinking deep into the horsehair mattress, under the heavy wool blankets, and you surrender fully to the quiet, industrial sleep of the Grand Junction Railway Hotel. The deep, dreamless rest of the industrial night has held you for hours, a warm, soft blanket of sleep that has smoothed away every sharp edge of the waking world. But the earth continues its slow, silent rotation, and the first wobbly threads of dawn are beginning to gather in the east. Inside room 104, the air is cool, dry, and perfectly still. The glowing red coal fireplace has long since expired, leaving behind only a silent, lumpy pile of cold gray ash in the bottom of the black cast-iron grate, looking like a quiet monument to the night's warmth. The gaslight above the writing desk is still lit, but it's through the small gap in the green woolen bed drapes, you can see a soft, pale gray light slowly filling the room, painting the crimson wallpaper and the dark mahogany wardrobe in shades of silver and ash. Suddenly, a soft, dry tap, tap, tap breaks the morning silence. It is a light repeating sound, like a dry twig brushing against the window pane. You slowly open your eyes, your mind feeling wonderfully quiet and clear, and listen. The tap, tap, tap repeats, a steady, patient rhythm that has no urgency, only a quiet, friendly insistence. It is the knocker-up. In the 19th century, before the invention of reliable, affordable alarm clocks, the knocker-up was a vital fixture of railway towns. He is an old station hand, wearing a heavy tweed cap and a thick woolen waistcoat, who walks the streets and the hotel courtyard at dawn, carrying a long, light bamboo rod. He taps on the windows of the guests who have early trains to catch, his long pole reaching up to the second floor, his gentle tapping a personalized silent alarm clock that wakes you without disturbing your neighbors. You slide your arm out from under the heavy Welsh blankets, the cold morning air of the room refreshing against your skin. You push back the green bed curtains, their wooden rings sliding along the brass rod with a soft, dry shurr that sounds like dry leaves sliding down a slide. You stand up, your stockinged feet finding the faded roses of the carpet. The wool is cool, but your body is warm, filled with the deep, restorative energy of your sleep. You walk over to the towering sash window and look out. Down in the courtyard below, the knocker-up sees your face at the window. He bows once, a silent, respectful gesture of his bamboo pole, and turns to walk slowly down the cobbled alleyway, his heavy boots making a quiet crunch. Crunch, crunch in the morning mist as he moves onto the next window. The morning is cold, misty, and quiet. A thick, pearly white fog has rolled in from the river, swallowing the lower platforms of the station and turning the massive glass dome of the terminal into a colossal, glowing arch of silver light. The rain has stopped, leaving the brickwork of the hotel wet and gleaming, the dark slate roofs reflecting the pale dawn like sheets of polished iron. You walk over to the mahogany washstand in the corner. The ceramic basin is still filled with the cold, mineral-heavy water from your evening wash. You splash a handful of the freezing water onto your face, the sudden icy chill making you gasp softly, instantly clearing away the last lingering threads of sleep, leaving your skin feeling cold, tight, and wonderfully alive. You dry your face with the rough linen towel, the textured grid of the fabric massage scrubbing your skin until your cheeks glow with a healthy, warm pink. You dress quickly in your warm traveling clothes, the heavy wool and stiff linen feeling solid and comfortable. You pack your small leather bag, folding your damp linen towel and sliding it into the pocket, checking the room one last time. The fire grate is cold and silent. The lopsided writing desk is empty, the stack of paper clean and still. The grandfather clock in the corner continues its patient, rhythmic work. Tock, tick, tock, tick, completely indifferent to your departure, prepared to tick for another century. You pick up your heavy brass room key, its key tag stamped with the number 104 cold in your hand, and push the heavy oak door open. You step out into the corridor, the crimson hallway looking pale and quiet in the morning light. You walk slowly down to the lobby, your boots making a quiet, rhythmic thud-thud on the carpeted steps of the grand staircase. The lobby is empty, save for the receptionist behind the carved oak counter. He is a different man from last night, but his mustache is just as sharp, his black frock coat just as free of lint. He does not smile, but he bows slightly as you approach, his silent, professional dignity a reassuring anchor in the quiet morning. You place the heavy brass key on the oak counter with a solid clink. The receptionist nods once, records your departure in the massive leather ledger with a quick scratch of his steel-nibbed pen, and wishes you a safe journey. His voice, a quiet, low-pitched murmur that has been trained to carry only 3 feet. You turn and walk through the massive double doors of the hotel, the wood swinging open with a slow, heavy creak. Step out onto the platform. The air is cold, wet, and wreathed in thick clouds of white steam. You are standing on platform 4, your small leather bag in your hand, your heavy wool coat buttoned up to your chin. The station is alive with the quiet energy of the morning departure. To your left, a colossal passenger locomotive has just backed down the line, its massive iron boiler painted a gleaming dark green. The engine is slowly breathing, its safety valves emitting a steady, rhythmic hiss sigh of white steam that rises up in thick, wobbly clouds, blending with the morning fog and the cold mist. The driver and the fireman are standing in the open cab, their faces smudged with coal dust, their figures dark and solid against the glowing red firebox. The passenger carriages are lined up behind the engine, their polished teak wood bodies gleaming in the wet morning light, their brass handles and window frames reflecting the wobbly yellow gas lamps in long golden needles. A guard in a blue uniform with shiny brass buttons is walking down the line, his heavy boots making a solid rhythmic thunk. Thunk. Thunk on the wooden platform, his hand checking the brass latches of the carriage doors. You walk toward the carriage, your steps slow and deliberate, your shoes making no sound in the damp mist. You reach for the cold brass handle of a first-class compartment door. You turn it, the heavy teak wood door swinging open with a slow, solid creak. You step inside the carriage, and the guard closes the door behind you with a solid, heavy clack thud that shuts out the cold mist, the whistling gas lamps, and the distant murmurs of the platform. The compartment is a cozy, velvet-lined world of green and gold. The seats are high, soft, and upholstered in deep green velvet, smelling faintly of leather, floor wax, and the dry, sweet scent of lavender water. You sit down by the window, the soft velvet seat cradling you in comfort, the thick wool carpet beneath your feet warm and dry. Through the glass, which is slightly beaded with morning condensation, you watch the platform slide away. The locomotive's whistle blows, a long, hollow, triumphant sound that rises up through the glass dome of the terminal, echoing softly in the brick arches of the hotel. The engine's exhaust begins to beat, a slow, heavy huff. Huff. Huff that quickly rises in tempo, turning into a steady, rhythmic chugging that sounds like a giant mechanical heart catching its stride. The train rolls slowly out of the station, the wobbly yellow gas lamps of Platform 4 turning into soft, golden stars that slowly disappear in the misty gray morning. The Grand Junction Railway Hotel, with its red brick towers, its pointed stone arches, and its narrow, glowing windows, gradually sinks back into the fog, a quiet giant of stone and industry that has given you a night of absolute, perfect rest. You lean your head back against the soft green velvet seat, your eyes closing softly in the warmth of the carriage. The steady, rhythmic clack, 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 clack of the iron wheels on the rails below becomes your new lullaby, a soothing, mechanical beat that will carry you safely toward your next destination, while you float in a warm, peaceful lake of absolute sleep. Good night.